Good morning and welcome. You're watching Market Cafe on ET Now, and this is that show where we bring to you all that's happening in global markets. So we'll give you global cues and then we'll go on to domestic news and individual stock-specific news as well. So we'll give you the whole highlight of what to possibly look out for in trade going forward today. And with me, I have Ankita Saxena, of course. And Ankita is obviously going to take us through all that's happening in global markets. Ankita.
Yes, thank you. Good morning to you, Harsh. Now, it looks like that there was a bit of a profit booking that happened on the New Year rally that we had seen in the US markets, and also there was a set of disappointing economic data that came out. We saw the retail sales, the producer prices declined more than expected in December, while the production in the US factories also fell more than expected, and November output was also weaker than thought. Now, it seems like the investors are finally believing that getting this inflation under control by way of more rate hikes is going to have some economic implications. There are no free lunches, and clearly it's panning out. And also the drop in the retail sales goes on to show that the consumers are buying lesser, which clearly means that the inflation is definitely playing out. So that was a disappointing set of numbers that came in yesterday, and on the back of that, the Dow Jones Industrial Average tumbled more than 600 points. Shares of banks led these losses, and the S&P 500 also lost more than 1.5% in trade to close at its lowest level since December 15th. The Nasdaq Composite slid 1.2%, snapping a 7-day winning streak. So largely, the US markets all ended with cuts. Now look at the European markets. European markets were mixed, pretty directionless and largely flat. The European market, the Pan-European stock 600 closed in 0.2% higher. DAX and FTSE were in the red, largely flat, and CAC, though ended the day in the green, was also absolutely flat. So no direction coming in there. Harsh, what about crude? How's crude faring?
Well, yes, Ankita, and before crude, let's take a quick check on what the SGX Nifty is doing as well. Down nearly 100 points. I don't recall the last time I saw that, and we saw that together, Ankita. So clearly down 100 points at the moment where the SGX Nifty is also concerned, clearly following the trend of how global markets are also doing. But let's quickly take it to crude. Let's take a check on that. Some amount of recession pressure, if I can call it, and that's really keeping crude deflated at the moment. The crude prices fell quite a bit. They're down around 1% or so from yesterday, and we're seeing that Brent is at $84 a barrel, and WTI crude is at $78.5 a barrel. So down around 1% to 1.5%, both of those. And despite the China reopening and all the positive that's coming across on crude, really the US recession has kept crude in check at the moment over the last day or so, and especially with the fall in retail sales, that will keep crude under check, and that's what's panning out at the moment. So that's where crude is concerned. We're going to go straight to what events to watch out for today, especially in Indian markets, and Ankita is going to take us through those details.
Absolutely, Harsh. So we are in the thick of the earnings season, and we have a couple of earnings coming out today that you need to watch out for. We have Asian Paints and HUL, the big boys, coming out with their earnings. We also have Hindustan Zinc, L&T Tech, Havells, MSIS, PVR, and Canfin Homes that will be coming out with their Q3 earnings. We also have the Prime Minister visit Karnataka and Maharashtra as of today, and we have the Finance Minister meeting all the PSBs in India. So these are the events that are likely to take place in today's trading session. Do keep an eye out on that.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Ankita. And we'll quickly move on to the macros. The US economy held steady in early January, with some regions experiencing modest declines in activity and others seeing slower growth. The Federal Reserve reported in its Beige Book survey that this has really played out in January. Meanwhile, Fed's Bullard also talked about how global economic factors have improved while inflation is set to recede this year.
And the US retail sales fell by the most in a year in December, pulled down by declines in purchases of motor vehicles and a range of other goods. Meanwhile, US business inventories increased in November as higher interest rates depressed sales, boosting the inventory to sales ratio to the highest level in nearly 2 years.
Well, moving on to, the little spoken of New Zealand. Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern announced she will stand aside for a new leader within weeks, saying she doesn't believe she has the energy to seek re-election in the October polls. She will step down as Labour Party leader in February. There will be a vote in the coming days to determine her replacement.
And International Energy Agency Executive Director Faith Birol believes that Russia will lose its energy war with the West. He also said that China and India's crude oil purchases will likely fall short of offsetting the fall in the shipments to Europe. He said the oil market's biggest uncertainty is China.
Well, and sticking to oil, the chief of the world's largest oil company is worried about global crude supplies. Saudi Aramco CEO Amin Nasser fears the world won't have enough spare capacity to deal with the current market dynamics. Aramco pumps out about 10% of the world's crude oil. He also said that China's demand for fuel is set to rise.
And in yet another news coming in from a tech major on layoffs, Amazon.com Inc. will cut some jobs in United States, Canada and Costa Rica as a part of its plan to lay off 18,000 employees. The cuts come as the retailer grapples with slowing online sales growth and braces for a possible recession affecting the spending power of its consumers.
Well, yes, and the Philippines has grappled with heavy rain, flooding and landslides since the beginning of January. At least 28 people have died in January according to the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council. The president has declared an official state of calamity in the southern province.
And in a tragic event, 7 people, including Ukraine's Interior Affairs Minister, have been killed after a helicopter crashed in a kindergarten in an eastern suburb of the Ukrainian capital of Kyiv. The 3 main figures in Ukraine's Interior Minister, who include the Interior Minister, his deputy and the State Secretary of the Ministry of Internal Affairs, were among those killed. President Zelensky spoke about the accident and called the disease true patriots.
But with that, we'll slip into a very short break. Of course, more on the other side on the domestic front, Ankita.
Yes, absolutely. You don't go anywhere. Stay tuned.
Welcome back. You're watching Market Cafe with Ankita and myself, and we'll quickly stick to the global news. All the action is currently in Davos, where the World Economic Forum is well underway. Yesterday we heard from the Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella, who praised India for what it has achieved in terms of digitization. He added that communication has become simpler due to advanced use of apps even in rural India. Listen in.
I was in India at the beginning of January, and I saw this demo class. In India, one of the things that's very exceptional that's happening is digital public goods that are getting built for identity, payment, many systems. And one of the digital public goods that's getting built is for language translation, right? So basically they have an open source project so that anybody building any application in India can translate between any language in any Indian language. So a demo I saw was a rural Indian farmer trying to access some government program, right? So he just expressed a complex thought in speech in one of the local languages that got translated and interpreted by a bot, and a response came back saying, go to a portal and here is how you'll access the program. He said, look, I'm not going to go to the portal. I want you to do this for me. And it completed it. And the reason why it was able to complete it was because a developer building it had taken GPT and trained it over all of the Government of India documents and then scaffolded it with this speech recognition software. So think about what that meant, right? That basically meant that a large model, a foundational model that was developed in the West Coast of the United States a few months before, had made its way to a developer in India who then sort of added value to it.
Right. Some more news coming in from Davos. We have Tata Sons chairperson N. Chandrasekaran talk about the need for India to take the lead in the India Plus One story and showcase its resilience to the world. Listen in.
I think it is not about replacing somebody. The world needs resilience. Resilience has to take precedence over efficiency. Over the last 50 years, we have driven efficiency beyond belief. So now we have to go back to being effective first, then put efficiency second. So the India Plus is for India to take the lead, to build the supply chain is ecosystem. It's not one person's game. Nobody can do it alone. We need partners. We need to work with other countries. We need to work with companies, US companies, Western companies, other companies who are willing to work with you on a transparent basis. So the India Plus, when I say that, I mean India takes the lead and builds this ecosystem so that we become an alternate, resilient supply chain for the world. It is not about replacing somebody.
Well, we also heard from Infosys' CEO Salil Parekh on how more and more businesses are using artificial intelligence and machine learning. He adds that US of technologies like blockchain can bring in more transparency.
First, there's a lot of usage of artificial intelligence and machine learning for real-time data, real-time connectedness in the supply chain. And that makes it much more efficient. These technologies are now prevalent. Each of the companies here are using them in different ways in their supply chains that we know of. The second is an area where the focus is really much more on transparency, leveraging knowledge and making sure that everyone is aware of what is in the supply chain and how it's being looked at. And here again, the technology of blockchain is used immensely. That makes it much more visible to all actors as to what's going on in a supply chain. And there are various ways of doing that. Most large enterprises are participating in that technology, and that makes it easier for people outside to see what each of the companies are doing and what each of the components in the supply chain are working through.
And sticking to Davos, speaking at the same panel with N. Chandra, India's IT Minister Ashwini Vaishnav spoke on how technology is helping create jobs in India, and that is also bringing in global players like Apple, who now want to become a part of the Make in India story. Let's take a look at this.
We believe that, for example, this iPhone 14 is made in India, right? And now quite a few parts of it, quite a few components of it are now getting made in India. So that makes a huge difference. It is adding jobs. It is creating new economic opportunities. Are we likely to do more PLIs? Yes, there are many more PLI items in the work. For example, hardware IT, for servers, for laptops, for PCs. That is another piece to be still in works. There would be, this approach has worked well, so there would be more sectors that we consider. People want effective and resilient supply chains. The cost efficiency, which was driving the entire globalization, that is no longer the sole factor. Today, supply chains have to be anti-fragile. Supply chains have to work, whatever be the magnitude of global disruption. So combine all those factors and the experience that we have had in the last few years, there would be many more supply chain partners who are looking at alternate geographies, alternate places, and India is, of course, a very important destination.
Well, yes, we'll quickly move on, and we'll take you through what the lineup for the market holds going forward. First up, we have Vineet, who's going to break down the Adani FPO for us at 8:20 a.m. After that, we have Nilesh Shah, MD CEO, MD of Kotak AMC. Needs absolutely no introduction, and he's going to obviously talk about the markets. Then there's going to be Ashish Bhandari, who's the MD and CEO at Thermax, who's going to talk about how the green drive is really getting into overdrive. And really after that, we're going to speak to Horma Sorabji, who's the editor at Autocar, on the price war that's heating up in EVs. And then we have Rajesh Sharma of Capri Global on the expansion plans of Capri Global. And lastly, on to an ET Now exclusive, we have Bhanu Chopra, who's the CEO of RateGain Travels, who's obviously going to speak to us all about the company. Largely, that's how we're looking at the lineup going forward. But with that, we'll slip into a very short break. Of course, more on the other side, on the domestic front, as well as we'll go company specific.
Welcome back. You're watching Market Cafe. Now it's that time of the show when we get you all the stock specific action and the stocks that you need to watch out for in today's trading session. And for that, we have Lisa in the studio. Lisa, good morning. Tell our viewers what are the stocks that we need to watch out for in today's trading session.
Well, good morning to all. Starting with Vedanta, they have been declared a successful bidder for Meenakshi Energy Limited, and that is under the corporate insolvency resolution process. Vedanta will be acquiring around 100% capital of Meenakshi Energy Limited, and the acquisition will be completed in FY24. Well, the consideration for this is around 1,440 crore. Out of this, 312 crore will be paid upfront, and the balance will be via NCD issued by Meenakshi Energy, and this will be paid over 5 years. Well, this acquisition is expected to enhance the group's portfolio in power segment. Moving on to Aurobindo Pharma, the US FDA has issued Form 483 with 2 observations for subsidiaries of Aurobindo Pharma, that is APL Healthcare and Derma Manufacturing Facility. Well, the observations are procedural in nature, and the company said that it will respond to the US FDA within the stipulated time. Moving on to Mahindra Lifescape, they have won its first society redevelopment project in Mumbai, and it will be on a project which will be developed on land measuring around 1.27 acres. Well, this project will offer Mahindra Lifescape revenue potential of around 500 crore. KDDL the board has approved the buyback of KDDL, and the buyback price will be at a maximum of 1,200 per share, and that is against a close of 1,066 per share of KDDL. The aggregate amount will be around 21 crore. Tata Motors, as per ET reports, they have initiated process for 3,500 to 4,000 crore IPO for Tata Technology. Well, Tata Motors holds around 74% stake in Tata Technologies, and Tata Technology is expected to fetch a valuation of around 16,200 to 20,000 crore valuation. Well, in December, the board had approved partial divestment of its stake in Tata Technology. And lastly, State Bank of India has raised around 9,718 crore, and that is via its second infrastructure bond issuance at a coupon rate of around 7.7%. They say that it will be used for enhancing the infrastructure and affordable housing segment. Well, these are the stocks that investors will keep in their radar for today.
Well, thanks so much for that, Lisa. I'll quickly mark out where the SGX Nifty is currently at, down 0.5% as we speak, around 90 points down. But we'll quickly move on. IndusInd Bank also declared its Q3 numbers, and let's quickly take a look at the numbers. Largely in line is where the numbers were at. We're seeing net interest income at 4,500 crore, just shade below 4,500 crore. That's where we were penciling it in as well. 18.5% growth on year-on-year basis, so healthy there. Operating profit, though, back of higher OPEX, operating profit largely up 11.3%. Again, absolutely in line, and pretty much all the numbers were absolutely in line with what the street was penciling in. Let me put that out up front. 3686 crore is where the operating profit came in at. Provisions came in at 1064 crore, expected at 1100 crore, so slightly better. And where PAT is concerned, therefore PAT came in slightly higher than what the street was penciling in. 1964 crore is where that PAT number has come. With regard to gross and net NPAs absolutely flat. Gross NPAs have improved around a couple of basis points to 2.06% now. ROA has come in better than penciled in. From 1.7% in Q2, it's come in at 1.87% this time around. So definite improvement there. And where both sides of the balance sheet are concerned, the advances growth solid at 19%, but the deposits growth slightly, couple of percentage points lower than what the street was penciling in, but good nonetheless. Where management commentary is quickly concerned, I'll take you through that. Well, retail was up 18.5% year on year with regard to advances. Vehicle disbursements came in at a record. They've grown 19% sequentially, 44% year on year, and corporate is up 4% quarter on quarter, 20% year on year. Credit cost is expected to overshoot slightly, and we're looking at a margin guidance of 4.15 to 4.25 despite margins coming in at 4.27%. Now I'm going to throw it back to Ankita. She's going to take us through what brokerages are saying on IndusInd Bank.
Well, absolutely, Harsh. The numbers clearly, as you stated, are in line with the street expectations. On the back of that, we have brokerages coming in from JP Morgan and BofA. First up is JP Morgan, who has maintained an overweight with a target price of 1,400 on the back of a couple of things. First up is that the core PPOP was driven by the loan growth of 19% year-on-year basis. They feel the NIM has also expanded 3 bips on a quarter-on-quarter basis. The credit costs have moderated to 1.6%. And also they're seeing a lot of positive traction in the retail deposit growth. So on the back of that, JP Morgan has maintained an overweight on IndusInd Bank. Let's look at what BofA has to say. BofA has maintained a buy with a target price of 1,500 per share. Now, the IndusInd Bank is also among the top picks for 2023. They feel that they are the best placed MSBs in the category, and also they feel that the strong loan growth momentum will be led by the vehicles. They feel the growth and the NIMs are now close to normal. So that's the view coming in from JP Morgan and BofA on IndusInd Bank.
Well, that's all about IndusInd Bank, but we'll quickly switch over. Adani Enterprises has set the floor price of the FPO at 3,112 rupees per share. Says that they are offering a discount of 64 rupees for retail investors. My colleague Somit joins in with all of those details. Somit.
Well, the largest FPO, that is the follow-on public offer, is expected to launch on January 27th, and that's of Adani Enterprises. 20,000 crore rupees is the amount that they're looking to raise from this FPO, and the price band that they have set is at 3,112 to 3,276, which is a discount of close to 10 to 13% when compared to the current market price. Over and above this, they're also saying that retail investors will get an additional discount of 64 rupees per share. Now, it's good. The FPO is expected to open on January 27th and will remain open till January 31st. Now, the payment structure of this FPO is also different. They are collecting only 50% of the amount on application, while the remaining 50% will be collected by the company on the first call. Now, how the funds will be used by the company? Well, majority portion of the funds will be used for capital expenditure towards green hydrogen, airport and the road projects, close to 10,869 crore rupees towards this, and the and close to 4,165 crore rupees will be used by the company for debt repayment. Now, do remember that the company's debt stands at close to 40,000 crore rupees, so close to 10% of that debt will be retired post this FPO, and the dilution on the equity base, on the expanded equity base, is expected to be around 5%. Now, what does Adani Enterprises do? Well, they are in different types of businesses, be it new energy, airport, road infra, consumer businesses, digital, data center. They're also into mining and coal trading, and also into manufacturing of defense equipment currently.
Well, Somit, just hang in there. We won't let you go because Alcoa has reported its Q4 CY22 earnings that is in line with inline revenues at $2.7 billion, but a weak EBITDA. Somit will give us more details on this. Over to you again, Somit.
Well, Alcoa reported their fourth quarter of calendar year 2022 numbers, and post that the share prices declined by around 5% in trade. So on that, Hindalco and Nalco will surely depend on focus. Now, Alcoa is the largest US-based aluminium producer, and their revenues were pretty much in line with what the street was expecting, but there has been a big miss when it comes to the adjusted EBITDA number. It has come in at close to $29 million, where analysts were expecting this number to be close to $107 million. Now, the EBITDA miss is largely owing to lower sequential prices for aluminium and alumina, along with this higher raw material cost and higher production cost also led to this miss in the fourth quarter of calendar year 2022. However, when it comes to the outlook is also not that great coming in from Alcoa, because they're expecting the aluminium shipments to be around 2.5 to 2.6 million metric tons, which is lower than what the street was expecting and largely flat compared to what the company did in the calendar year 2022. And when it comes to alumina, they're expecting the shipments in fact to be lower at close to 12.7 to 12.9 as compared to 13.1 million metric tons done by the company in calendar year 2022. Now this guidance is lower because of the global inflation, lower demand coming in from Europe, and also because of a soft economic outlook in China, which is the world's largest consumer of aluminium.
Well, thanks so much for that, Somit. Now we'll switch over again. HUL is expected to release its Q3 numbers, and revenue and PAT are expected to jump on a year-on-year basis. What should we expect from the FMCG behemoth this quarter, and what factors should we keep an eye out on? My colleague Vinny joins in with all of those details.
Absolutely. This is the first FMCG major which will be reporting its numbers, and in terms of numbers, what we're expecting in terms of revenue, 14% revenue growth, and with that a volume growth we're expecting of around a 4 to 5% volume growth coming in. But mainly, there's a price hike that the companies have taken mainly in the detergent and soap businesses as well. So, that pricing led growth is also going to be there, and mainly this time around also predominantly the growth is going to be supported by the price hikes that the company has taken. Now, other than that, the profitability is expected to see a growth of around 11.6%. Margins expected to see a contraction this time around as well. There's some bit of that inflationary pressure which has still continued. So EBITDA margins, we are expecting a contraction of 140 basis points. Just taking a step back is in terms of gross margins. Sequentially, yes, we may see an improvement coming in margins because the PFAD prices have seen a correction coming in. But yes, year-on-year basis margins, whether gross or EBITDA margins, are going to be under pressure because that inflationary trend has still continued. Other than that, the product mix also is a bit inferior this time around, so that is a factor that will be impacting the EBITDA margins of the company as well. Home care, personal care business is expected to start seeing a better growth coming in. Home care business mainly led by the pricing growth as well. Now, factors to watch out for in terms of commentary: rural versus urban demand, what is the growth over there, outlook for the nutrition business, outlook for out-of-home consumption, discretionary items, how is that shaped up, as well as the pricing actions and new launches that the company is planning is a factor to watch out for.
Right, thank you for the details, Vinny. Asian Paints will also be releasing its Q3 numbers today, and according to poll, revenue and profit are expected to go up on a year-on-year basis. Now, what else to expect from the earnings and what to watch out for? My colleague Lisa joins in for more details. Over to you, Lisa.
Well, Asian Paint is expected to report a decent set of numbers. Volume growth is expected to be around 5% on year-on-year basis. Well, this moderation in volume growth that comes from a high base which was witnessed last year. Remember, last year it was around 18% Y-on-Y growth for the volumes. Apart from that, the monsoon season in October, that is also likely to impact the volume growth. However, November and December is expected to see a good recovery, especially in the high margin exterior paint segment. The margin, both the gross and the EBITDA margin, that is expected to see a slight pressure on year-on-year basis. However, on sequential basis, it is likely to see an improvement on the back of a better product mix and also the declining raw material prices, especially in titanium dioxide and the crude oil prices. However, INR depreciation, that is expected to partially negate the deflation in the raw material cost. Apart from these factors, the key commentary to watch out will be the volume and the demand outlook in both the rural as well as the urban region, the pricing trends, the raw material pricing trends, and also the product mix, competition intensity, and the trajectory in the increasing home care segment.
Well, thanks for that, Lisa. But speaking at the biggest economic forum, Minister of Power R.K. Singh claims that India has emerged among the top 5 nations in a survey in the energy transmission space. Let's listen into what he had to say.
एनर्जी में देखिए दुनिया भर में बहुत डिस्रप्शन हुआ है। यूरोप में करीब 4 गुना 5 गुना एनर्जी प्राइसेस बढ़ गए, डिस्रप्शन हो गया। हमारे यहाँ नहीं हुआ। हमारे यहाँ डिस्रप्शन नहीं हुआ डिस्पाइट द फैक्ट दैट आवर डिमांड हैज़ बीन ग्रोइंग दिस ईयर। इस साल हमारा डिमांड बढ़ा है करीब 10.5%। पिछले 2 महीने में हमारा डिमांड 12.5% बढ़ा है। लेकिन हमारे यहाँ न तो कहीं पर ब्लैकआउट है, न हमारे एनर्जी प्राइसेस, न हमारे इलेक्ट्रिसिटी प्राइसेस बढ़े हैं। तो हम लोग स्टेबिलिटी में, दूसरा, जो हम लोगों ने एनर्जी ट्रांजिशन करने का निर्णय किया था, आज जो हमने अपने एनडीसीज में हम लोगों ने प्लेज किया था कि इतना कि हमारा रिन्यूएबल एनर्जी कैपेसिटी हो जाएगा 2030 तक, उससे हम आगे हैं। दुनिया में हम ही एक देश हैं, बड़े देश में जितने बड़े इकोनॉमीज हैं, हम ही एक बड़े इकोनॉमी है जिसका कि एनर्जी ट्रांजिशन एक्शंस कॉन्सोनेंट है विथ अ सब 2 डिग्रीज राइज इन ग्लोबल टेम्परेचर। वी आर द ओनली मेजर इकोनॉमी। एक सर्वे निकाला था, ये डिफरेंट बॉडीज हैं इंटरनेशनली जो सर्वेज करते हैं एनर्जी ट्रांजिशन एक्शंस का, उसमें टॉप 5 नेशंस में इंडिया है एनर्जी ट्रांजिशन में, और बाकी हमारे साथ जो बाकी 4 देश और हैं वो छोटे इकोनॉमीज हैं, बड़े इकोनॉमी हम ही एक अकेले हैं। तो एनर्जी ट्रांजिशन में ग्रीन हाइड्रोजन में जो हमने किया या कर रहे हैं, दैट इज ऑन पैरेलल।
And Mansukh Mandavia claims that the looming threat of COVID-19 is still not over yet. Nations like China, Japan are still affected with large numbers of infections. Let's take a look at this.
मैं कोविड का खतरा टल गया है ऐसा नहीं कहूँगा, और देश में आज कोविड का खतरा नहीं है इतना कहूँगा, लेकिन टल गया ऐसा नहीं कहूँगा, क्योंकि कोविड का फर्स्ट, सेकंड, थर्ड, फोर्थ और फिफ्थ वेव चल रहा है। आज यूरोप, चाइना, कोरिया, जापान, सिंगापुर, बैंकॉक सब लोग इफेक्टेड हैं और बहुत बड़ी मात्रा में केस वहाँ दिखाई दे रहा है। लेकिन हमने जिस तरह से कोविड मैनेजमेंट किया इंडिया में, और मोदी जी ने जैसे ट्रेसिंग, ट्रैकिंग, ट्रीटिंग और जो 4T का कंसेप्ट से देश में कोविड मैनेजमेंट किया था, उसको देखते हुए, उसको आगे बढ़ाते हुए आज हमने देश शांति से सोते शांति से रहे।
Well, yes, it's all about the World Economic Forum, isn't it? But with that, we're completely out of time on this edition of the show. We have the SGX Nifty slipping just below that 0.5% mark now, so it's the drop is getting stretched a little bit. But with that, we're completely out of time. From Ankita, myself, and everyone who puts the show together, thanks for watching.